Some bands evolve over time, whether through their own desire to change, branching out by being experimental, or by trend chasing. Some bands, however, stick to one style and sound their entire career and never veer from the path. There are good and bad examples of this. In the first part of this two-part video series, we are looking at a good list of 10 bands that never changed their sound. I'm breaking this series up into two parts because there are bands out there that never changed up their style, and not only did it work out great, but most people were happy with it. I'll make a part 2 about bands who never changed their sound when they really should have. But right now, we're talking about the good list of bands who stayed consistent. I put out the question on the community tab, and these are the 10 names that kept coming up as suggestions. This video is not a top 10, no ranking, just a list. Also, I'm only including bands that have at least 5 albums released in their career. Not much need for change if the band only released 2 albums. I know there are way more than 10 bands that qualify on this list, so leave a comment and let everyone know who you think is a good example of a band that never changed their sound and it worked. You know how these videos work, let's get to it. Groove metal and metal itself owes a debt to Lamb of God for being able to stay consistent over some tumultuous times in their career, all while being a standard bearer for metal and staying consistent in their delivery. Lamb of God is not for everyone, and the brash sound can scare some away, but it pulls many others in, and the band knows exactly how to give the fan base what they've known to love. When you have a voice like Randy, your music is definitely going to have a specific style instantly associated with it. Lamb of God take full advantage of that as well. The voice, along with Mark Morton shredding away, have made millions of fans over the years, and few times if ever when people are disappointed with what the group puts out. Lamb of God has aged well over the years because the group has a unique style from the beginning, and they were able to keep up that high level of craftsmanship with what they were producing all the way to Omens. I'm confident the band is not done either, as they're still riling up crowds all over the world, all who want more of that same style. I'm also aware of Burn the Priest in 1999. Everything I just said still applies. Don't bother writing comments trying to ask, what about Burn the Priest? Because there, I beat you to it. I was thinking about that woman I loved run away with another man. Bostonians may argue who is the pride of Boston in the music world, but Dropkick Murphys have made a massive career from the Northeast by being at the front of the Celtic Irish punk. Whether it's a soft, wistful dirge or a fast-moving punk song to dance with, Ken Casey and company have proven how to work bagpipes and banjos into hard rock and have it stay there for decades. Once Shipping Up to Boston went big in 2005 and 2006, Dropkick Murphys' style was instantly recognizable regardless of the song, due to so much included in their tracks with the Irish punk. You cannot go to a concert or festival with Dropkick Murphys and not expect it to be part dance party with everyone. A mad, angry, drunk dance party, but still a dance party. You won't hear Dropkick Murphys try to run with an edgy metalcore backtrack. The presentation on stage is part of the music, and the musicians make everything themselves in turn. It's a party on stage as well, with everyone playing along. You won't hear Dropkick Murphys venture away from that sound, because that would mean they'd have to leave that party. No matter how biting and angry Dropkick Murphys songs can get, you know deep down it's a bunch of men loving the music and keeping the Celtic punk going strong. Heading to Denmark for a hard rock band who proved rockabilly can be made popular and belong in the current heavy music world, and can come from Denmark. The fact that Volbeat isn't from Nashville truly is a breath of fresh air. Since 2005, Volbeat have dominated European crowds and made a big statement in the US, all while keeping the same throwback made modern sound. Keep in mind, Volbeat started in the mid-2000s with their debut, and this rockabilly style they would be known for was not an overly popular side of music in rock and metal. Even this year, think how many bands could pull off psychobilly heavy metal and really think about what it would do. It's an extremely short list of people that are trying, and Volbeat is at the top. You know what you were getting with Volbeat, and they have found ways to expand within their own lane, including collaborations, cover songs. The band proved they are great with this style. It's one thing when a hard rock band can incorporate saxophone and piano without making the song soft, which more of needs to happen, but it's another when you're a band that's reliable for making heavy music with so much swing and swagger. Volbeat's done it for years and does not need to change. Punk is a genre that has a lot of bands stay true to punk rock roots but eventually become stale or hit a ceiling. Rise Against not only never had a ceiling, but they've proven even in recent years that they still have writing material for days to drive the music. Without having to change their core sound, Rise Against has been consistently delivering a message since the unraveling in 2001. Rise Against is another group that had a fairly consistent lineup for the most part since inception, and that passion from Tim McElrath and company is still heard as recently as Nowhere Generation in 2021. The glory of that is while some people may dread Rise Against churning out another Rise Up Against the System track, the band is able to make something strong sounding and give those deeper messages, especially in the non-single cuts on an album. Quick guitar riffs and loud drumming with lyrics that get direct. That's a big part of punk, and as high as Rise Against have been elevated compared to other rock bands, the passion is still there and their format of how to deliver what they are saying is still heard. Rise Against is a case of people worriedly expecting the music that's coming up, but then being happy that it is still Rise Against. It's a weird one, but Rise Against always delivers. Arguably the best Viking metal band right now, coming up as a positive suggestion for bands that never change their sound with when I ask the question, and I agree. When you already have the Viking identity as the core of your mellow death metal band, it's hard to steer away. Since 1998, Amon Amarth have set sail and are still killing it in the studio and on stage, especially on stage. Their performances can get violent. Mellow death metal is aggressive in nature, and even though the group has said over the years they have not meant to be a Viking material group, they will forever be associated as a Viking metal band. Heg, Mikkonen, and Lundstrom for over 2 decades had this fierce, full-front, chugging, visceral sound that if it wasn't delivered that way, I don't know if fans or audience in general would react. Amon Amarth is a good example of a group doubling down and leading into what has worked and keeping it going. The Viking stories work, let's bring a Viking ship on stage. The guttural delivery works, let's get louder and feature more of it. This has worked for them, and the amazing guitar work has helped add something worth checking on each album. I get some people get tired of the same album style, but Amon Amarth proved they can add more to the ship each time. In the hard rock world, it's easy to chase trends, especially when you start out the gate in the middle of the nu metal scene. Sevendust have been able to make a career out of keeping a core sound similar across 25 years, thanks mainly in part to a consistent original lineup and a powerhouse vocalist that anyone can point out when heard. That's all Sevendust needed. More people on more YouTube channels than I can count have complimented LaJohn Witherspoon's vocals. When I look back at Home and Animosity and then hear the last few years of Sevendust output, LaJohn still sounds powerful. The band still sounds heavy. The albums are not clones of each other. That's hard to do when you've been going hard for over 20 years. Sevendust are beloved within the industry, but have gone overlooked by the mass populace for a long time, and I think that's a shame because the band's consistency has never fallen or felt phoned in. You don't ever hear about trend chasing with this group either. Sevendust fans are loyal. The concerts are now feel-good moments, and any band that takes Sevendust on stage is always happy about it. Except Nickelback, because they said Sevendust are too good, and they would make Nickelback look bad if Nickelback followed. Chad Kroeger takes Sevendust out on tour, you bunch of cowards. Venturing out of death metal is difficult because the backlash from fans would be massive. Cannibal Corpse never had to worry about that though because they've always been at the forefront of most death metal lineups. Cannibal Corpse has been able to horrify parents and rile up club venues for decades. Decades of consistent screaming and vulgarity. Even with the singer change, and in my opinion a singer change for the better with Corpse Grinder, Cannibal Corpse kept their same style, songwriting, music in general, that was ferocious and grotesque and crushing and all the other adjectives that can describe Cannibal Corpse. I do also think that when you sign your name up to the band Cannibal Corpse, you're agreeing to not play soft adult contemporary. The band was heavy before the grunge years. They helped pioneer death metal in many ways, and it would be wrong if they left that sound they were known for. I'm just wishing out loud here, but if for some reason Jim Carrey ever wants to do Ace Ventura 3, it would be great to bring back Cannibal Corpse, again, just to see Ace and Corpse Grinder on stage together. Just putting that out in the universe. I hope it happens somehow. Going over to Germany for a group that made their own stamp of industrial, turned it on its head, and proved they can do whatever they want. Rammstein have forever cemented themselves as a group who is consistently reliable in their sound, even after more than a decade away. If anything, the band has proven they know how to age well while still being extremely vulgar and foul. Rammstein are known for their live show spectacle, that's a given. But what the band is also known for is in their fan base and getting that new material in that NDH branch of industrial. One reason why Rammstein never needed to change their sound is because few bands in true mainstream heavy music sound like Rammstein. Even after the comeback, people are still praising the Six, including Zeit of 2022, which is one of my favorite albums this year. I was not expecting that. There is something to be said about men all in their 50s still relying on grotesque lyrics and going blue with the onstage antics, but the stadium tour this year proved there is more than enough of a market for that. For a group going strong since their 1995 debut, I think Rammstein proved if you are good and have a unique sound, you can become big anywhere, not just your homeland. The consistency helped. It's amazing what 4 chords can do, and when you have an attitude like the Ramones have, you better believe there is not going to be any change. Punk rock owes a big part of its roots to that power chord style from the Ramones going back to 1976, when Blitzkrieg Bop became embedded in everyone's head. 14 studio albums, dozens of singles, and still enough energy to tell off Mr. Burns. Those power chords were the backbone of a band that many groups later cited as inspiration. Had the Ramones been able to continue on, I highly doubt you would have ever seen them shift to pop punk or lighten the mood. Not a chance. Johnny Ramone's guitar style was a staple for the band and for rock, and hearing that style of punk from the Ramones was always a testament to what the band established for 20 years. You never question the Ramones in the process either. The short and simple structure of many Ramones songs was almost minimalist in a way, considering how rock music was becoming in the 70s with wild prog and other styles, but the Ramones refreshed rock and rooted punk by playing power chords until their fingers hurt and shouting until their voices were out. Arguably the longest running example of a band who found their sound decades ago and have been a part of classic rock longer than most of us have been alive. There is something to be said about decades of success, being one of the best-selling bands of all time, and keeping the same relative sound through it all even after a singer change. Most bands can't even handle one of those achievements. When AC/DC lost Bon Scott and brought in Brian Johnson, the band kept their identity that people knew, and over the years everyone eventually accepted the singer change, along with how AC/DC is reliably the same standard, no frills, no gimmicks, true rock and roll. I get people have preferred eras of AC/DC after so much time, that's fine, but I have admiration for the group who can still make a song like Play Ball and it's instantly identifiable as AC/DC on first listen, even if you didn't know it was AC/DC at first. From High Voltage to Power Up, AC/DC kind of transcended above genre and we're not just a rock band, it's AC/DC. The music is distinct because they define themselves that way. Dirty, gritty, sleazy, solo blasting, high-pitched rock. To this day, I'm still shocked AC/DC isn't printed on Australian money. And that was a look at 10 bands who never changed their style, and for good reason. Part 2 is coming, where I look at bands that never changed their style, and they probably should have. Leave a comment and let everyone know if you know a band that never changed their style after many years. Big thanks to my patrons, and special thanks to Chris Doman, Dom Noble, and Frosty Rabbit. You can have a say in upcoming videos, get weekly new music playlists, and see videos early by supporting Rocked on Patreon. Click the link in the video description on how you can help the channel. Please subscribe and ring the bell to get notified on upcoming videos, and you can keep up to date with Rocked on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Worth pointing out that for every fan who hates when a band changes their sound, there's another fan who loves a group's consistency. Point is, you will never make every fan happy.